Welcome to Mark and Sam After Work. Today I want to talk about a couple of things. One is this rifle that's sitting in front of me, which is our 375 Gibbs or 375 Shytac improved, and where we got to this season. We started this season, and at the beginning of the season I said I didn't know how long it was going to take. We almost got done what we were trying to do, which was to hit a target at over 5,000 yards. So whether that's 5,000 yards, 5,000 metres or 3 miles, all shot placements and areas we've got worked out to do things, but really trying to get onto the target with the right conditions. We did a lot of learning this season, a lot of figuring it out from the conditions we needed to the areas we needed, modifying our equipment, the Charlie Tarak system, and going through and refining that and making that work properly. We've changed over brass, got to the Peterson brass, doing that side of things, raised our scope up to be able to get better vision side of it. We've proven our new muzzle brake, the likes of the bipod system had some tiny tweaks with some strengthening of things on it, but really everything is working really, really well. Have some other bits to bring to the table with our new version 4 adjustable bag base, and really ready to carry on. We stopped probably 2/3 of the way through the season because the conditions were too hard to see. They really never pulled themselves back from that. We did carry on a little bit in that sort of stuff, and we're trying to adjust and move on and conquer the conditions, but the other thing we're trying to do is get decent video out of this as well. The bit we did get where we missed the target by 1 or 2 inches and held a group of under half an MOA at over 5,000 yards, so 5,045 yards I think, was awesome, shot really well, really happy with things. It was really the end of what we were trying, because when we looked at the video we really couldn't see, and we're struggling in those conditions. But still, a lot developed from it, a lot learned from it, went really well, was super happy with it, and like I said, we'll see. Hopefully, from my thoughts on the subject, the conditions were worse than we've seen. In the last 5 years, that was definitely the dirtiest air we've seen. That may be more the fact I wasn't trying to do that shot specifically. It may have been the year, and it may be something, like I said, we're just going to have to adapt and deal with. Anyway, went well, super happy with it, but it leads me into another conversation. What I wanted to talk about was ELR competitions, or the extreme range shooting competitions that are starting to show up around the world. Awesome thing that people all over the place are doing, and hats off to the guys who are putting these competitions forward for people to go at. And I would certainly understand the logistics and the effort that they're going to do this sort of stuff. So I'd thank them very much for that sort of stuff. We get asked a little bit of why don't we go to that sort of competition, or are you going to that sort of competition, and suggestions along those lines. Up front, I would say, listen, it's not something we're likely to be able to do. We are not in the position to be able to do that. We probably run a fairly funny life compared to most people, and we're very happy about the life we live, and we work hard, but we enjoy what we do. We enjoy our shooting, we enjoy our work. We are lucky on that side of things. The bit that most people wouldn't understand is that we don't have holidays. We have a long weekend more often than there are long weekends, but that's it. That's what we do, and that's for more than 20 years now. So holidays away, that sort of stuff, having a week off, it's not something we've done in 20 years. Going overseas, all that sort of stuff isn't in our curriculum. And then the likes of going to a competition like that, pardon me, as much as it would be fascinating to shoot at that type of thing, it's also something on a couple of different levels. One would be the cost, which would be, I think done cheaply would be $15,000, and I think you could spend $25,000 to $30,000 quite easily in that sort of journey, and what it would take to do it all properly and go through and do that, which is not in our budget or not likely for us to be able to do. The other side that is more a personal preference thing, the way we do ELR shooting is driven by what the conditions are, driven by how we shoot, how everything's set up, that sort of stuff is very much not competition based, as much as they have personal challenges to try and create things, to try and get the job done. The weather pushes us around, our timing pushes things around, we fit it into places, but it is still far more relaxed and comfortable not saying there's no stress and things, but it's in a different vein and a different a different way of doing things. And that's where I want to touch on a couple of things. And I would qualify it through the fact that we're not going to the competition. So what I've got to say is greatly going to be taken with a huge hunk of salt. I get that. It's just my opinion, but it's something I'm going to put forward, and for a couple of reasons. The main reason that I'm putting it forward is that this competitions in general. That's racing, competitions of all forms, really the nature of them. It's good for our enthusiasm, it's good for our egos, it's good for all that sort of stuff in the way of humanity in the Western world and that side of it. But it's also good for development, for making things better, for working out what's better and worse, and for pushing the boundaries of things and getting everything, every sort of form of technology and technique and attitude and everything, refining and making them better. To do that, you need competitions that give you valid results. Rigged competitions, biased competitions, uneven competitions, all that sort of stuff ends up with uneven results and not information that really pushes the sport forward. Now, not saying anyone's rigged or biased or any of that sort of stuff. Get that off the table. What I am saying, but, is that one of the things that I don't think is being given enough consideration is how condition-based ELR shooting is. Conditions are king. What I mean by that is that if you have bad wind in a 2,000 or 3,000 yard shot where you can't read it, what's going on, it makes things monstrously difficult. Versus low wind or constant wind or that sort of stuff can really change things and make it a lot simpler. It's only one detail. Mirage can wipe you out. Gusting wind can wipe you out. Those things can take your effort, and especially in a competition that is based on time, one little time slot, X amount of time to get X amount of shots done at extreme range, you are very much driven to the point where if you get a bad time slot, you're done. Now, if your competition sets up where by random order, which I've no doubt they're all done on, I don't doubt it's a completely random way that they select time for people, which is how it should be, because it is, you don't want people being able to buy the best time slots. But if you end up where you are taking out shooters because of conditions, then your results, the moment you've done that, your results are then tainted by what the conditions gave you. So I think there's a degree of that's never going to be 100% curable, because that's just the nature of what ELR shooting is, but I think it can be done a fair bit better. An idea for that sort of stuff, a couple of ideas. One would be points weighting versus conditions. Very complex, I get it, but where you do, and I know that I do, if I get really close to my 24-inch plate at 3,000 yards and I've got really hard wind, I'm pretty happy with myself. Whereas at 3,000 yards, I should be able to hit fairly consistently in better conditions. I don't think that as highly as almost getting it in poor conditions. So I think there is a way to do that. This probably takes a lot of skill and a lot of controversy involved in that. The immediate one that I think can be put in place is some extra days. And that would be that you have obviously X amount of shooters. You're trying to fit 50 shooters into 2 days of shooting. You probably actually need another day or another 2 days to do reshoots. And that would be, an idea would be the shooter has in their 10-minute time slot, they have the first 3 minutes to call whether their conditions are shootable or not shootable. If they get verification on that, then they can get a reshoot position. So that way you then you can potentially set things up where if things go well, then awesome, they all go through. It's not going to happen. You're going to have 1% to 60% of the field that are going to have bad conditions and want to reshoot. You'd have to verify that, make sure that's reasonable, but they can't get a practice shoot. You'd have to do it before they pull the trigger. But then you do that side of it, you do your reshoots, you've then just doubled your percentages of being able to get real numbers at the end of the day. And what I'm trying to say with that is my honest feelings, I would go as far as saying to get to where I can feel the results are valid, you really want as much as you can to try and make sure that you've got your best shooters shooting. And that's the same with anything. And that's race cars, that's tennis players, that's golf players, that's ELR shooters. You want to try and make sure your competition has given everyone a fair crack. And obviously with any competition you're going to have, one of the things I don't like about competition is there's politics and there's money and there's egos involved, but I think keeping it fair would be a very important part of trying to do all those things. And that's trying to validate the equipment that's being used, that's trying to find the best shooter, that's trying all those things. The other thing I would say in the competition side of it, which is the other detail that I sort of look at, is I don't know properly, I haven't really checked it out thoroughly, but from what I gather, a lot of the competition rules are based around F class or other similar competitions. And in my mind, especially for the people who are looking for world records or the competitions that are looking to claim world records, not something that we're interested in or involved in the world record chase, but if you are after a world record and want it to be called a true ELR world record, then to have equipment limitations in pedantic ways, I think that they allow a forward adjustable base and a rear adjustable base, and there's other details which are and I don't know, I could stand corrected on that sort of score, but that sort of thing, if you want to be called world record for ELR shooting, I think it should be opened up to whatever wants to shoot in there. Now that would obviously keep it to the fact that it is a rifle, and that means it's not a bolted down behemoth that pulls up on the back of the truck. It's something that's got to be shot in a free form, so it shoots against your shoulder, so it's not bolted to the ground, all that sort of stuff. But realistically, if you've got spikes, or you've got our adjustable bag base, or you've got a rifle in a carrying form, which is an 100-pound rifle, but you've got a rifle that is in a form that is conceivably still a rifle, then I think you should look at that very carefully. The moment you limit it to just being, and I'm not saying that is the case, but if you just limit to being an F-class thing that's got to do that, then all you can claim is the F-class World Championship or F-class World Record. But those are just thoughts, those are semantics, I get it. I suppose I have a bit of a bias on the fact of my adjustable bag base is the way I like to set things up. If I was to ever to try and go there, or people that bought our bases wanted to go there, then I think I can't see a sensible reason to not let someone use something that doesn't have an unfair advantage. It's just, like I said, a technical semantic. But that's just my thoughts on the subject. Beyond that point, as I said, those are just my feelings on it. I would actually love to be at a competition. Like I said, we're not likely to be there. Hopefully things go well in our world and we get the chance to be able to do that sort of trip and maybe shoot in those sort of conditions. One of the things that people aren't aware of actually is that some people are, some people aren't, but the likes of shooting at those sort of elevations would be very interesting. What I mean in difference is we shoot at sort of sea level up to 1,000 feet above sea level. When you start shooting at those sort of elevations, which are the 6,000 feet up to, I think the likes of King of 2 Miles is at 6,500 feet. Looked at the conditions that were posted recently, and they were running in barometric pressures that were equivalent to 8,500 feet. You do the maths on that sort of stuff. This rifle here, to shoot 2 miles, in our conditions, I need to have up around the 190, 200 minutes of elevation. So I need well set up scopes with adjustable bases and things, or Charlie tracks, or that sort of stuff. In those conditions, I don't need anything other than the scope. I go from 200 minutes down to 120 minutes with this rifle to shoot in those conditions. So it's with this rifle, it's bordering on, we're just about able to get there supersonic. So it's almost taking 2 miles to not quite what I normally call ELR. Not quite, it's still out there, don't get me wrong, and I'm not trying to underwrite the competition on that level, but I'd love to try it and that sort of stuff. It changes how the wind affects, it changes how the mirage, it changes everything. Sitting from my side of the pond, it would make my long shot a lot easier. I don't know if that's the case. We haven't been there, we haven't shot in those situations, so it'd be very interesting to see. Yeah, so listen, anyway, that's my overall thoughts on that. I would have to say for us, it's competition isn't something we're trying to focus on. We are very much about the personal challenge of trying to get done what we're trying to get done. We're doing it in our own peculiar way, so our long range stuff is obviously a bit further. It's 24-inch plate, it's only 2 people, it's done in our own little pedantic way, which is trying to keep it as real as we can keep it. I don't want to take away anything from people who are doing things electronically or all the other things. It still takes all its own skill and all its own effort, but ours is our own personal challenge. And as I said before, and I've said a few times this time, we're not after a world record. That's something that has its own ego attached to it. We're really trying to do our own thing. Well, we're trying to get something done, and it is working the way that I want it to work. Our own personal challenge pushes both us in our skills. It also pushes us in the equipment, and the more I refine things, the better I get things to try and hit at 3 miles. My equipment, as I proved this year to be truthful, we're on at 3,600 yards with 7mm rem mag and 300 Win mag without too much trouble at all. A lot easier shooting than I imagined. Go back 4 years ago, I did quite a bit of work to get on that same 24-inch plate at 2 miles with my 338. So we're certainly developing, and it's all down that road of pushing further and further and further, which is where we're having a ball at. Anyway, that's my thoughts on it. I want to reiterate, I don't want to take away anything from the guys who do the competitions. I think it's awesome. The guys that get in there, I think it's awesome. I do think there's some ways you can probably make the competitions a little more worthy, but I don't want to take away how worthy they already are. Anyway, guys, thanks for checking us out. We'll catch you next time.